Welcome to the unhappy 18th episode of Dialogika. I'm Stephanie Tangkilisan.
And I'm Swedian Lee.
And this week on our very sad episode, we talk about the Trump presidency and our 5 stages of grief.
We're going to talk about why is it the case that even though Hillary won in the popular vote, that Trump won. And so dissecting the flaws of the electoral college, which has voted for Trump. We're also going to look into what the reactions of both Americans and internationals such as us to a Trump presidency.
We're also going to talk about what the Trump presidency has inspired in terms of hate crimes.
This is going to be a longer episode because we have a lot of feelings and we have a lot of emotions that we want to get out. But most importantly, I think we want to have a proper discussion about what happened instead of just venting through sound bites or tweets or whatever. Like, we want to have a dialogue
and also a call to action about what we should now do as people who want to make the world a better place. So, here's to it. So, just to recap, Trump won the electoral vote, and not the popular vote, becoming the 45th president of the United States, and maybe the last president of the United States. For our listeners who are not that familiar with the US presidential process, the winner of the presidential process is not decided by popular vote. That is to say, how many people voted for one particular candidate, which is the way we vote in Indonesia. The person with the most vote, regardless of where they vote for, wins. And so each vote in that country counts as the same. In America, it is not like that. There's this thing called the electoral college.
We've touched on the electoral college briefly on our previous episode about the US elections a few episodes back. You can listen to that as well. Never did I thought that we would end up with this as the follow-up to that episode.
No.
But
I wish Kasich won. I would do anything for Kasich to have won. Or even Jeb.
Now you are on Jeb's side.
I'm on Jeb's side.
But the electoral college is a system whereby certain states are given more votes than other states. So in this particular system, states such as Florida, California, Texas, these big states with high number of population are particularly important to win. And what's important about the electoral college, barring 2 states, every single state is won by majority. So
basically, it's sort of a winner-takes-all system, whereby as a result of the system, 1 vote in California is equal to 3 votes in Ohio or some of the Rust Belt states.
It doesn't get divvied up based on proportion.
It was partly created in order to make sure that the urban areas' interest never supersede the rural areas. So and also I've also read about how it's supposed to keep southern states happy, because otherwise, by virtue of voting by population, the northern states would always win. So this was a way to keep the union intact.
As Stephanie said, it's a way to kind of balance the power of democracy amongst the states. And if you see how the night unfolded for Hillary Clinton, she lost a lot of the states she was expected to. And then, unfortunately, the ones that she won are the smaller states that don't have enough electoral college votes. Nevada only has, I believe, 6. But Trump won Florida, which has 29, and Trump won Wisconsin, which has 10, Pennsylvania, which has 20. Those are major differences, and it became really hard to see a way back for Hillary once she lost those big states with those electoral college votes. The downside of the electoral college is once you see your candidate lose a certain state, then it's a long battle from then.
It doesn't matter that, as of recording this, it's estimated that Hillary Clinton has won the popular vote by over 1.2 million.
This is only the second time in the last 10 years that a candidate has won the popular vote but lost the electoral college vote, lost the election. The last time that happened in the last 10 years was Al Gore versus George Bush in 2000, and we know how controversial that was.
So with that one, the margin was even closer in a way in terms of how many states there were. So they were mostly recounting the votes in Florida only, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so they went all the way to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court decided that the Electoral College is supposed to stay. which means that fail rate of the electoral system in terms of like making the candidate with the less votes win. I don't see how it's like more of a democratic system, right? And this is going to continue on happening just because the biggest population growths are generally in urban areas, which tend to vote Democrat, whereas in rural areas, like the population growth isn't nearly as large. So we'll definitely see a lot more losses of this kind in the next 10, 20 years, which is, I think, going to end up, I feel like it's going to change at some point. Like, maybe the presidential is decided by popular vote, but the Senate and House continues on the Electoral College or something. But at some point, something has got to give. It can't always be, what if the vote ends up turning to be like 10 million votes difference? That's huge.
Oh, totally.
Just because like, that would mean that's, so basically around 27, 25 million people voted for Trump and 25, 26 million voted for Hillary. The largest estimate we've had so far is like Hillary could win between 5 to 6 million votes more than Trump, which means that that's 10% of the voting population, which is insane. Like, how can that be a democratic system to have that big of a margin? Doesn't seem to me like a system that is fair. Also, because the way the electoral system is, it makes white votes count more than people of color's votes, because in this rural areas are places where it's mostly white people. So I don't know, it's modern day disenfranchisement. It's like the 3/5 vote rule again.
Even in these circumstances, I don't think we're gonna see any overturning of the election. No. It's a done deal. Unfortunately, we have this guy now. Seeing the map, how the urban versus rural voted, it's quite interesting, right? So basically, if you see the map, it's very obvious that like there's only a very few parts that are blue who voted for Hillary, and almost the rest of the country is red, right? Which is like pictorially, it kind of shows how divided America is. Like a lot of places in rural America have been failing because of loss of job industries, right? And how a candidate like Bernie Sanders would probably have been a better choice given how he would appeal to those kind of voters more, because the reason why they voted for Obama is he represented change versus Bush or Romney, right? Yeah.
Who are seen as like elite people from the East Coast and or just like elite political dynasties, right? And how like essentially working class voters would prioritize their own livelihoods and lives more over, the racism of Trump or the sexism of Trump, because they think that it's more important that they get jobs back, and they got conned by Trump into thinking that this is what is better for them personally, and they are, truly suffering in a way. So they're not going to care. And I think that is a fair argument, and I don't think that all of Trump's supporters are truly deplorable.
I think that's definitely a good point. I think whatever the outcome of the election was going to be, I think both parties had to take a deep and difficult look at themselves and how they have such a disconnect. The Republicans with the minorities, and now the Democrats with rural America. And because we lost, the Democrats lost, we have to look at this even more. Like, this is such a consequential election because, there's no sugarcoating it. The Democrats lost everything. We won a few things, but not enough to change the fact that we lost.
I go back and forth being absolutely devastated and then like being hopeful. I guess for me, like what I'm hopeful for is that a lot of people now can't take progress for granted. And, being in Pantsuits Nation, it just makes me realize that we cannot all just be social justice warriors on the internet, like we have to leave our echo chambers and actually do the hard work organizing and like being an activist,
And if our listeners, you don't know what Pantsuit Nation is, then you're not in it.
You're just not cool enough yet. JK.
JK, it's a secret Facebook group that Hillary, hinted at in her concession speech.
I definitely think that there's a thing about like not having an echo chamber, right? Like,
what I think is the case is that the Trump campaign was able to manipulate and take advantage of the echo chamber much better than anybody else.
In what sense?
They realized that people were getting their news out of one source, and that has been the case not just with Facebook. It's like conservatives watch Fox News and liberals watch MSNBC. They very rarely watch the other channel.
Yeah.
And so Trump knew that if he could be in these channels, in these mainstream channels that everybody get their news from, that's why he didn't spend a lot of money on advertising, because he wasn't trying to advertise.
He doesn't need to.
Yeah. He was like trolling the mainstream media by being there.
He totally was.
And people fell for it, like in the same way that people fell for trolls, right? Like they decided to go along with the bandwagon and continue trolling. And I think Donald Trump is the biggest troll in election history.
That is true.
I personally feel that on the night of the election, he did not expect to win. And now he's like, fuck, what do I do? I have to govern now.
Yeah.
But yeah, as you see, both the bad thing and the good thing about democracy is that the bad thing is these kind of results can happen. The good thing is there's always a second time.
Yeah. Winston Churchill and the whole, democracy is the worst form of government except for the others that have been tried and failed.
Yeah.
Arguably, if it's a true American democracy and the popular vote was the thing, Hillary would have been president, so.
Shrug emoji.
IDK.
So this is an interesting situation, right? Like, where both Stephanie and I are seriously, grieving. I think I went through the 5 stages of grief throughout this election process.
God, yes. I've oscillated through this 5 stages of grief.
I don't know if I've reached the 5th one yet. I don't know if I've reached acceptance yet. I'm still sort of
No.
in a mess.
No. So me and Sweden are Indonesian citizens. We cannot vote, but we both went to school in the US and we feel very strongly about politics in the US. Sweden in particular, I feel has more of a reason to grieve than I do.
Well, yeah,
because you've been working on this campaign for the last 2 years.
Yeah, and I think both you and I have really close friends in America who are going to be the tangible victims of this outcome. And we feel for them. The first response I had after, staying up until 3 or 4 a.m. over here, watching the news come in, was to send out an email to all of my American friends saying, the sun will rise again, and, a lot of the international world is on your side. I mean, just look at how the Dow Jones, plunged. Everybody was scared of a Trump presidency. So that we're all collectively trying to take care of each other and make sure that this man only has one term.
For me personally, I feel strongly because when I went to the University of Chicago, I felt for the first time, it was a community where I belonged. My American friends are still some of the best people I know and are still really dear friends of mine. And after high school and everything that I went through, I felt that college in America in particular was a place where I finally belonged in a way. I felt less racism towards me as an Asian person in Chicago than as a Chinese Indonesian woman in Indonesia. No one has ever targeted my people there to kill because of my ethnicity in the US, whereas I feel definitely more uncomfortable based on my race walking around in Indonesia. So to me, America was sort of this place where there was progress and acceptance and where I learned a lot about philosophy and feminism. And it's still, for all of its problems, a place where I thought was, at the forefront of morality and progress in the world. And then to see that crumbling by electing Trump was just so shocking to me. It just sucks how much people fear being in a Trump America right now. That's what really upsets me, is how there's a lot of racism against Black people and women, Muslim women, right? So the ones that I've seen are women whose hijabs have been ripped away from their heads and then, in the University of Michigan case, threatened to be burned, right? Yeah. You see a lot of that everywhere across the US. I've seen photos of, swastikas being painted and white power, and KKK marches are being planned in North Carolina. The phrase is we voted for Trump, this is not your country anymore, or this is Trump's America now. Mm-hmm. That was really makes me really sad and scared for people.
I mean, this might be a bigger can of worms to dig into at the moment, but I was reading the latest issue of Foreign Affairs magazine, and the entire issue is talking about the rise of populism.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. That's a whole other thing.
As a way of explaining what's going on, right? Like, because right now we have, like, the results of Brexit.
Yeah.
We have Rodrigo Duterte in Philippines. We have Marine Le Pen in France. Like, there are leaders other than Trump who are espousing the same things. So to say that Trump is a unique phenomenon in America because of America's issues, I think as people who are part of the international world, we can't just say that. Like, we see dangerous populism everywhere, and we need to curb that.
I think aside of the rise of nationalism, I think I also see it as like the death throes of like white patriarchy. Like, in a way, like, the world is changing. You have a lot more women and people of color becoming a more vital part of the power structures, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like the power in the world. And basically what this is talking about and like goes into is like the idea that the white man is no longer going to rule the world in a figurative and like literal sense. And so like a lot of white men are becoming more scared about the fact that they're not going to have the most dominant place in the world anymore, and like they may not necessarily also have even proper jobs that, you know, satisfies their egos. Mm-hmm. So by voting for Trump, they think it can reverse the tide of global progress.
Yeah.
And like reinstate like white supremacy, right? That's what they're buying into, essentially.
That's a good point, because Hillary is the opposite of that for them, you know, as a female leader.
Also, white women, right? They're becoming scared about the fact that, you know, their way of life might be threatened in terms of like, you know, their place within white supremacy, right? And so they want to, you know, keep that position intact. So they're voting based in fear, right? And this is really interesting to like think about the ways how they think they're being threatened by equality.
White people, this is the worst thing we've ever... No, I'm sorry, that's a very high bar, but holy shit! And don't try to distance yourself from the bad apples and say, it's not my fault, I didn't vote for him. Hashtag not all white people. Shush, shush, shush! If Muslims have to take responsibility for every member of their community, so do we. Oh, that does feel awful. Yeah.
I thought this was a meme, but like it's basically really true, right? Like how the America that voted for Trump is the same America that voted for Obama, and it's the same America that it was yesterday, right? It's just that we didn't know it. So if anything, it's almost good that we know the reality of how much progress there is still to be made on so many different levels.
I think that's a good way of seeing it, because that's something we can change. You know, if we just accept that these people are all xenophobes and racist, even if they are, if we don't see the gap and we don't see the opportunity to fix it, then we'll end up with a divided nation, and that's not going to help anyone, let alone the Americans.
What democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
I'm in New York right now recording this podcast with Stephanie, and I attended a protest.
So you went to the protest?
The protest happened in Union Square Park, and it was a very vibrant protest with a lot of different messages, and it was passionate, and it was certainly angry, but I don't think it ever threatened to become violent. I mean, there were also a lot of cops and a helicopter right above us. So
yeah.
So the march, we had a march all up Fifth Ave from 14th Street up to Trump Tower. So basically along Manhattan. And by the time we got there were like, there's already been like sandbags and barricades and a lot of heavy security presence in Trump Tower ever since he got elected. So that wasn't because of us. But what was encouraging for me participating in the march is that, we're all dissatisfied. There's a lot of different messages about why we're dissatisfied. It's not only about, misogyny. It's not only about racism. It's about climate change. It's about, immigration and all of these things. And everybody was supporting each other. And, there were many moments of, I saw like the people who are marching hugging bystanders who were supporting them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And what was also actually really interesting is that on our march, I saw a Trump supporter. I saw a white guy, carrying a Trump sign. And one of the people marching just went up to him and started talking. Nothing violent, nothing whatever. It was just pure dialogue, and they had a very engaging dialogue. I don't think she changed his mind at all. But there's something like, this is why I'm on this side, right? Like, I'm on the side of progressive values, because we're willing to have that dialogue, even when we're at our most vulnerable.
We have seen that our nation is more deeply divided than we thought. But I still believe in America, and I always will.
I think both Stephanie and I are pragmatic enough to know that Hillary's not perfect, and certainly there's a lot of...
I was the person who definitely felt the burn, right?
Yeah.
Although, but Bernie, as you can tell, I still feel the burn sometimes. But it's not even a contest. It's not even a thing. And to be honest, as further along as I saw Hillary do her thing, the more I became amazed at how much she loves America and how much she's worked for the country. Her 30 years of public service, her endurance to last this long in politics, despite everything that has been, said about her, and they forced her to cut her hair and call herself Hillary Clinton instead of Hillary Rodham, because when she was the first wife of Arkansas for a bill, everyone was like the fact that she kept her maiden name was about to lose Bill the election.
Yeah.
She's had people call her so many different things across her entire life, yet she kept fighting for it, and
But she kept coming back, and sure she'll come back at some capacity, whether it's in politics or not, I don't know. But I know that, having worked with the people who worked on the campaign, having seen her concession speech and hearing everything she's talked about, she will continue fighting for a better America.
I have, as Tim said, spent my entire adult life fighting for what I believe in. I've had successes and I've had setbacks, sometimes really painful ones. Many of you are at the beginning of your professional, public, and political careers. You will have successes and setbacks too. This loss hurts, but please never stop believing that fighting for what's right is worth it. And to all the women, and especially the young women, who put their faith in this campaign and in me, I want you to know that nothing has made me prouder than to be your champion.
So basically, what also really struck me with Clinton's concession speech is the fact that, she talked about how we should keep going and how I will have to do that as well. And if Hillary Clinton has spent her entire life doing this and had such terrible successes and setbacks, and she's still going to keep going and fighting, what right do I have as a baby feminist to complain and feel disillusioned and feel like any kind of setback? I do not deserve to be tired yet. I do not get to say that I want to be tired and clock out, I've hardly been a feminist for 5 years. I do not get to bow out. None of us get to do that. But anyway, so essentially the tweet that I saw that was excellent is that, if you thought I was an angry feminist bitch before, I hope you're ready for me for the next 4 years.
I want to share something that I saw from a designer in America called Debbie Millman. She shared this graphic, basically just a list. there are two lists. One is today and one is tomorrow. On today's list, you can cry, mourn, second guess, worry, or grieve. But tomorrow you have to unify, work harder, plan, mobilize, and make a difference. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, because I think we should definitely feel through all of the stages for grief. We should definitely feel angry, but we should definitely, not only get angry, but organize, right? And I've ordered my books on community organizing and Saul Alinsky's books and also The Rise of Fascism. I'm gonna try to educate myself on The Rise of Fascism. But basically, don't just get angry, organize, and spend your time actually. I need to get out of my safe space of Facebook and my online trolling activities, but actually do things in real life to help the causes, right? I mean, I was already somewhat involved to begin with, but I think if anything, this is pushing me to be more active in the future, and definitely pushes me to definitely want to be an active participant in the political system, be it being actually a politician or something in the future as well.
And to all the little girls who are watching this, never doubt that you are valuable and powerful and deserving of every chance and opportunity in the world to pursue and achieve your own dreams.
Thank you so much for listening to us this week. We hope you kind of took away something from it. As always, music credits to Jazzart, Ryan Little, and Broke for Free.
And if you haven't followed us on YouTube, our latest channel, you should definitely follow us.
We're also still going to be on SoundCloud, but we want to highlight YouTube a bit more.
And also, it's a lot easier, I guess, to listen on YouTube than, say, open up SoundCloud or, go into iTunes and download the podcast. So we're trying to make it easier for you guys to listen, to enjoy the episodes.
Yeah. And once again, we always really want feedback. So email us at dialogikapodcast@gmail.com or send us a Facebook message or comment on YouTube.
And as always, we'll have resources and links at our website, dialogika.id. And
thanks so much